Can you find it here? Good day. I am Maria Mercedes Larrondo-Petrie. I'm the Executive Director of LACCEI, and on behalf of LACCEI, I would like to welcome all of you to our webinar series. Today's topic is artificial intelligence in engineering education. Our featured speakers present the European perspective and the American perspectives. We will begin with Dr. Diana Andone. She is on the board of directors of IEEE Education Society and a director of the Digital Education and Distance Education Department at Politehnica University of Timisoara in Romania. She has authored more than 17 books and 100 research papers, and has completed more than 30 research projects and educational international projects. She has also taught in universities in England, France, United States, Finland, Italy, and Greece. And she is a Eden Senior Fellow, IEEE Educational Society 2021 Distinguished Chapter Leadership Award winner, Eden Vice President of Communications and Communities, and a member of the Educational Society Board of Governors since 2021. In IEEE Romania section, the IEEE's Activities Share since 2019, and the EUA Digital Transformation Steering Committee. She also acts in the board of Romanian non-government organization Pentru Voi Foundation in Timisoara, and 2023 European Capital of Culture Task Force, and in other voluntary organizations such as the Rotary International. So we're very blessed to have Dr. Diana Andone here with us, presenting the European view on artificial intelligence in engineering education and its effects on all the infrastructures. Go ahead, Diana.
Thank you very, very much for this extensive presentation, Maria. Usually I feel very embarrassed by this. I'll try to speak as slowly as possible and as, as accurate as possible, but you need to bear with me. For me, it's a bit later. It's 8 o'clock quite soon. It's 7 o'clock. So that's one of the reasons why probably I might have some bit of an issue. So I will start with my presentation, which is more or less about AI in engineering. And if you have any questions or something like that, please stop me anytime. As Maria already mentioned, I'm acting at this moment for the last 2 years, and I will still continue for another 2 years, being just re-elected, the Vice President of the IEEE Education Society for Conferences. So obviously, I'm trying to encourage you to see and follow us. This is one of the most oldest, it's the fourth created society in IEEE. I'm pretty sure, as you are quite a lot of you in engineering, that you are aware of what IEEE is, so I don't need to introduce that. And this is looking more on how educational engineering is being done around the world, and with a lot of support and information about that. And this year, we are going to host the IEEE Digital Education and MOOCs conference in Timisoara, Romania, in my city, which is a very old Baroque city, and in my university. Last year, it was in Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton with Maria Petrie as the general chair. And so I'm inviting you now to come to Timisoara. The abstract submission is still open until February 15, which is only 300 words. So if you have any idea of a paper, workshop, panel, or poster or presentation, which is looking at the digital education ecosystems, obviously looking at open online courses, at open education, AI, and micro-credential. So I will put here in the chat the link to, let me see if I can copy it from here. No, I can't. So I will do that later, but you can find it. So obviously, I'm coming from a quite old university, which celebrated more than 106 years now. So it's been already running for some time. We are doing all levels of education for more than 100 years. We celebrated this summer the 100 years from the first PhD graduate, and we've been doing education for many years, especially in engineering. I'm running the digital and distance education department almost for more than 17 years now. So, and I was involved in this department as an associated member since 1998 when it was established. In Europe, we have something which is quite important and quite big in the last 6 years, which are the European University Alliances. So groups of universities with similar interests, with similar information or background, which want to work together to build up like a one multi-campus university, massive university, which is delivering education and research in different regions and trying to match it and trying to put it together as much as possible. We are part of UDRES with universities which comes all over Europe, so from different parts of Europe. We are almost the biggest one. The university from the Netherlands is only a tiny bit bigger than us. And we are trying to do a lot of joint master degrees, joint degrees. We have now research centers and so on. And we built up also a fully online system for delivering education at the level of the Alliance. So I've been doing something which Maria didn't mention because I very rarely put it on my CV, is that back in 1995, I graduated a master's degree in artificial intelligence and robotics. So my interest with artificial intelligence has been more or less since I was an undergrad, because I discovered web and I wanted to see how we can connect it with AI, with what we were doing at that moment with machine learning. Quite a strong part of my PhD development was also looking at learning analytics and how you can use data to develop and integrate better structures in learning and in education, in higher education. But obviously in the last 3 years, I became quite interested on this, and I had done several trainings and presentation on the use of AI at different levels. And all of them is open. I'm a strong advocate of open education and open science and open access. And this Zenodo, this is the European Union open platform for publishing with DOI, so with indexing purposes, repositories of information from mainly European Union. But you can access it and it's open and it's quite easy to be found. If you look with AI and my name, you will find it quite easily in Zenodo. Just a bit of an idea about what I think about AI generally is that I consider that we need to look how to co-create and control as to benefit from the generative AI in education and also in research. Because it's not just simply something with adopting and learning from it. We need more or less to reimagine quite a lot of the structures on how we are doing this research and also education. We've seen this quite strongly in the last years across the entire globe, that all universities, and not only universities, because the industry is already shaped strongly by AI, especially in the IT or automotive or in the industry, in the heavy industry aspects, where generative AI has taken quite a lot of the work, which was the repetitive work which was at the beginner level or at the entry level. And this is also affecting our how we do education and our graduates and everything what we are doing. So more or less, we need to try to reimagine education. And this is an avatar created by AI, one of the very few times when I allowed them to create an avatar for me. And it's quite an interesting one. I always like to use it because I don't think it really looks like me, or unless it's a very, very, very good version of me, of me very young or something. But I like the thing that without giving any hints or anything, has created myself as a warrior and having the sign of the victory. So I quite like that. That's the bit which I quite liked out of this avatar. But I'm using this to say this is my opinion. I strongly believe that AI will shape more or less every industry in the world, but especially in the education, it will shape its framework. So it will shape how we are doing it. It will not only shape a part of it, because why? Because we need to look more at the holistic level and at a general level. And for that, what I keep saying for more than a year now, I have several presentations with different bits from this, so I will go very fast over some of it, is about the strategic adoption of AI in higher education and engineering education. Some ideas of the steps and the information and guides about everything which you need to do from smaller scale to larger scale, so even at a university level, but also at a department or as a small unit level, and even at an individual level as a professor and as a starter in the academic world. Because you need obviously to start with how you look at the vision, where you want to go, what's your path, what are your strengths, and then to identify exactly what you want to do. I always think on strategies in terms of pillars. So you need to have some pillars, some strengths on which you are building up. And then you're building in waves. So you start doing something and then you further develop out of it. And then from time to time, you have sprints. And then in those sprints, you discover pockets of innovation. And then you try to transform those pockets of innovation into something more, into something which you can develop or extrapolate either at the level of department or university or share it even outside of your university. So this is why I keep thinking that you need to do this in a more strategic way, even if you're doing it as a simple individual, not necessarily for a whole department of faculty. And this is how I suggest, this is based on my experience and what I keep looking and reading about it. And obviously, once you know about this, once you have this competence development, this support, this idea of doing it, you need to start doing teaching with AI and having use cases and validation of the tools, continuous training and redesigning of the assessment. Then obviously you need, they don't go separately. They need to go together. You need to build a very, very strong academic integrity and culture. One of the things which AI has showed us is how weak we are in terms of academic integrity in all aspects, and probably not only in education, but also in the society at large. That's one of the problems which we have. So we strongly need to have more ethical consideration and transparency and being fair and open and using it, responsibly, because we know it uses a lot of resources and it affects quite a lot of people and also the earth. It's something which we need to find intrinsic. We need to build it up in ourselves to change our culture, our mind shift, and just to keep doing it. And I have loads of information about that all the time. Because only like that you are able to build a safe and responsible use of AI, because if not, it's quite difficult. And here I strongly believe on this. This is something which initially I was prepared to speak about, is about the open principles. So I strongly believe that if we want to make AI more transparent and to have to harness the full benefits of AI, we need to adopt and reestablish the open principles with the use of AI. Because only with the open principles, which encourage fairness, transparency, and shareability, and use of sustainable tools and redeveloped and reuse of the tools, I consider that we can move safely forward and integrate AI, especially in education. And obviously, all of this is also affecting our research and how we are doing research at this moment. So something about the first part on the strategic development of AI, I will go a bit more faster here. So here I strongly believe that what we need to do is more AI alignment and integration with your institution visions and goals. So it's quite important from that perspective. Even if you are an individual, you need to be aware what is the strategy of your university, because a university is consistent of the professors and their students. And if the professors and students don't share your vision and goal, something is wrong. You need to create and adapt that so it really reflects what your staff and students want from you. And this is very, very important. I will give you an example from Europe. This is from UK. I quite like this AI maturity toolkit for higher education, where you can look at all different levels of AI on how you can implement it and embed it. And obviously, the highest level is when it is optimized and transformed, and the tertiary education is developed quite a lot. I'm coming from European Union, and here we have quite strong regulations about everything which is related to digital or to data. Obviously, we have the EU GDPR, the famous data protection rights guidelines, and then we have had for more than 2 years now the AI Act, which is part of the Digital Act. But we are also implementing the OECD AI Policy Observatory and what UNESCO is saying, especially in the perspective of artificial intelligence in education. So there are a plethora of information and data which you can look at, and you are able to deliver quite good ideas on how to do it. In EU, for us, it's quite simple. Especially in education, we are considered a high-risk one, and we need to do everything in our power to disclose the content what was generated by AI in all levels of using it, even if it is only, I don't know, a simple generic use of it, to design for not creating illegal content, and obviously to be able not to share information which is protected by intellectual property or which can be copyrighted. So it's quite strict. Back in December 2025, European Union has the Digital Competencies Framework, which was the famous DCOM 2.2, and now we have the DCOM 3.0, which has an extensive, and it's now translating very fast in all the languages of the European Union, so including also Spanish and Portuguese, which are languages which I know that you speak quite a lot in that region from where you are mainly coming, where it obviously looks at the impact of AI. And what I need to say, it reflects two things which are very important. They recognize the differences in the individual digital competencies, which are developing in time with different needs of each individual. So that's quite important because for us, when you do capacity building or training, you cannot have a structure and say, okay, we've done it, we stay quiet for a year or half a year. No, people, tools, and world is constantly evolving. So I always say that now, even in training or in education, we are in a permanent beta. We always need to deliver something, changes, and so on. And also how important are our rights, choices, and our well-being in the digital environment. And this is something which we need to look at. UNESCO has a lot of publication in different languages, I think more than 15 languages at this moment, which can be downloaded and integrated in your presentations and so on. So something on how you built up these regulations or policies. So it started obviously from students, quite a lot of us. And at this moment are very, very little universities which are not using or not having AI policies in higher education. Or at least this is what the information comes from educators and so on. And this paper and these guidelines coming from Educase, which is an American NGO, shows to you different levels of using AI in education. And it's quite a good one, even if it is 1 year old now. A very important one, which was launched in September 2025, is the UNESCO Global Report on AI and the Future of Education. And here you are going to be able to have some information about ethical governance and models, and also some study cases about how to implement. As I said, we know that quite a lot of universities in Europe and North America have or are developing guidance and policies on AI in education, not so much in Latin America and in Caribbean. And I need to say that in the Asian countries or in the African countries, this is even lower than it was. Some basic ideas about what we need to be able to do for this policy is that we need to be able to implement these open and collaborative structures in our policies. And this is basically because AI nowadays is not something which you can restrict to your own institution. It has a huge, it's influenced by political reality. So it's global, and this affects quite a lot of your guidelines and what you're doing, and it's changing so fast that you constantly need to adapt that. You need to be able to have a look and have structures and guidelines for data protection of your information. One of the most valuable assets, sorry, apologies for that. One of the most valuable assets which we have in higher education is what we produce, what our humans, academics and students produce with their brains, with their intelligence. That's the thing which we need to protect most. And it's quite well known. There are loads of study cases that if you give some information or some data, just to create a simple summary from a table or from a piece of document which you have created by yourself to an AI, that will be immediately replicated somewhere else. There are famous cases for that, which are very well documented, very sensitive data, even coming from information from airports and so on, or information from CERN, which is our accelerator, which is in Switzerland, which is trying to discover the why and how we have been becoming ourselves here on Earth and what is happening with the universe. So even that information, which we know is very sensitive and very a lot of information and brain was put there, is now sometimes you can find it online if you have the proper tools. Ethics, transparency, and academic integrity, and constantly building for the future competencies, not for the past competencies. You have a lot of information about this and where it is, and usually the common elements for these policies are the acceptable use, where and how you can use it in your university, the academic honesty policy, which is quite a standard, word of saying about this, on how to do it, and the ethical guidelines of using it. In US, there are huge data. This is a big repository done by Padlet, which is still maintained quite well and quite good, about different universities from US on how they are using and integrated AI in different sectors and at different levels. I quite like the Stanford University and what they are doing on this perspective. They also have created the first master in prompt engineering, and they have full courses at all levels of engineering education with prompt, because we all know now that we, especially in programming and so on, we are using quite a lot of AI tools for supporting and making it faster on how we teach, and also how students learn about doing programming, but also in other fields. The same with MIT. Similar with Harvard, they have quite a good thing, and I quite like their honor code. So try to have a look at those if you are interested, because it's quite good. Yale, and this is my university. We've been quite good. It's soon 3 years since we were the first university in Romania which adopted AI regulations in higher education. Also, because I was together with a group of colleagues from my university strongly involved on this, and we knew that we needed to do something before we go into the thesis defense with our undergrad and graduate students. And we introduced also these changes in the student authenticity declaration, being the first ones which we used it. And for us, it's quite clear. They can use it, but they need to be very transparent on that and cite it correctly and so on. So even for more than almost 3 years now, we've been doing it. Since then, we've developed and I've been just today involved in one and yesterday, doing loads of training and guidelines and information to try to build up this competence development at all levels, also for researcher, teachers, but also for students. And then something about how you can do this at other levels. So please have a look at this report. I'm running out of time, so I will go a tiny bit faster. And I will just say that what is very important, especially if you are coming from large countries or from communities which can speak the same language, is collaboration and consistency. This is very, very important because you cannot be alone. This is why for us in Europe, it's quite important the policies which the EU has developed in the last years, and they are strongly doing it because those are for us are the lighthouse, so we all look at that and we all go from there. And this strategy goes from regulations or policies to guidelines, support, partnership, and development. So it's not very simple just as one. And then obviously to be able to have as much as possible transparency, this is very, very important to have from the day one with your students and with yourself. Mention everywhere, all the time, how and where AI was used. Cite it correctly. If students see this, and if you constantly ask them to do this, it's becoming a culture change, a shift, and it's becoming the normal. And then we can really speak about integrity and transparency and using it responsibly. So I will go very fast over this, how you can really do it. First, involve everybody. So not think only from one perspective. Identify those pockets of innovation, and then build those pillars on the existing things, not start from scratch. Build the academic integrity, improve constantly the future skills and the AI competencies, develop tutorials, instructional support, again, continuously, and then co-design with agentic AI, which is not only one field, not only computer science or information technology, but in all engineering fields, this can be done. And this is something which needs, in my opinion, to be taught to the students. So it's a transversal course from my perspective. I will go faster over this because I don't have the time. But what you can do, quite important is to adapt the instruction and assessment and try to include as much as possible principles of the open education, of full transparency or of presentations which are live, project-based development, and so on, because only like that you can improve the assessment part of your education. I think the time when we are relying on multiple choice tests, online tests, is gone. Those are tests where we don't validate nothing from the competencies of today's students. And some takeaways, as I say, open book exams, get rid of the disposable assignments and create unique and reusable assignments and promote this culture of academic integrity, because these are very, very important in the long run. Again, join us this year in the summer in my beautiful city. I would love to be able to see you there. And this is my repository on AI. So try to get as much as you can information from there. It's free to use and you can access it easily. Or drop me an email or follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Diana. I have a couple of questions and then I'll open it up a little bit more.
Perfect, thank you.
The Organization of American States has named LACCEI as the Center of Excellence for Engineering for the Americas. And we're very involved with the Ministers of Science and Technology, who have named last year two working groups that they needed assistance from the OAS to put policies for the use of AI in governance. And another working group is working on the use of AI in education. And I was wondering, how did the European Union get started in this? And how many years ago, how was the process initiated? Because we're having a little bit of a rough start to getting started.
I'm pretty sure it's not something easy to be done.
Yeah.
Something which in Europe, we are working quite a lot in Europe together. I'm trying to find the link. And in education, we have this, which is called the European Digital Education Hub. And this is open to anyone, in fact. So you can, if you are in education, register here. So European Union, how it started with the Digital Single Act. The Digital Single Act is something which Europe has started doing back in 2004. So, and it starts always, Europe is very good on collecting group of experts, which come from a variety of sectors, like probably the model which you say, this task force of these groups.
Mm-hmm.
So they are from academia, industry, NGOs, governments, and policymakers, and so on. And then they establish a sort of, how to say, sprints, because this is why I say we work in sprints. They get, okay, let's think of the next step. And also in EWINE, in the European University Association, in the Digital Transformation Group, this is how we do. So we don't necessarily go, we have a vision, so we know, like we knew that we needed to build up the AI Act back 3 years ago when we started, more or less, almost 3 years ago. Or we knew last year, exactly in February, that we need to adapt the framework for digital competencies with AI. So they have involved more than 500 people. So don't imagine that this only for the digital competencies framework, more than 500 people across Europe voluntarily. So nobody was paid, work together in groups of meetings and groups of working collaboratively, more or less in this situation in the Digital Education Hub, to build up ideas and then putting it together. And then this was done until June, July. Then they ran several meetings where they presented this to the whole group of 500 people, trying to harmonize it. And then they have a group of 6 people, which try to put it together, very good researchers and policymakers with loads of experience, which have done and spent the whole month of October just trying to put that in a framework and in a policy together. Then before going to have it, to say, approved by the European Parliament or the European Commission, they run again and test and evaluate it. So it's more or less something which in engineering we do, like the agile method, So if you apply the agile method also in this development, it works. The only thing is that you need to have clusters of people which really want to do it. And I think I cannot say how it's happening in any other parts of the world. I've been working also in England, and in the same policy, GISC is approaching to this. In United States, to be honest, I never encountered something similar. Groups of people from different sectors of life working together voluntarily to build up a structure or a policy which affects everybody after that. But this is how we've done it. But it involved a lot of people, quite good coordination from the level of the European Union, and the commission assigned 4 people to coordinate, only to coordinate and manage us with meetings and information and where we are sharing data and chasing us to do that. But it was a huge joint effort. And this is why it's validated, because it's validated by the people. So it's not only coming from top down, it's the bottom up approach. And in this cascade way of doing it, which is the agile methodology movement.
Thank you. And one more question. The IEEE Education Society, which we're all part of, has a standards committee.
Yes.
What would you recommend so that we can do a global standard, minimal standard in education from the IEEE?
Yeah. So it is a group which is exactly now working on this. So we have established a group by IEEE Education Society and 4 other societies. So the Computer Society, the Telecommunication, Signals and Communication one. We are all working together on a standard for AI in education engineering. So, and the idea is to have a proposal or something to be discussed at the level of IEEE, so IEEE by July. So we again doing the same thing. We run meetings from time to time together. We have a common working document and everybody is contributed again voluntarily on trying to put it together. And we have an administrative quiz following and keeping us all in straight line that we are doing this. It's a collaborative working effort and based on, I need to say, open principles. So everybody sharing their knowledge and information and time openly for this information. So hopefully in this summer, we are going to have a proposed standard for AI in engineering education. You're muted, Maria.
Now we switch from the European perspective to the Americas perspective. And we have with us Dr. Homero Murzi. He has a PhD in engineering education, and he's a professor of engineering education at Texas A&M. He currently serves as the chair of the Research in Engineering Education Network called REEN, and is the leader of the LACCEI K-12 initiative that's focused on strengthening early engineering education pathways across the Americas. His work centers on engineering education research with particular emphasis on faculty development, student engagement, teamwork, motivation, and inclusive learning environments. Through his leadership roles in REEN and LACCEI, Dr. Murzi actively contributes to the alignment of K-12 education, higher education, and research, promoting systematic transformation and evidence-based innovation in engineering education. Welcome, Dr. Murzi. And
thank you.
You've heard the European viewpoint, and you're preparing the next generation of professional engineering educators. And what is your perspective is happening or should happen in the Americas or across the world to help prepare the educators, be a support for AI in education?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Diana, for your excellent presentation. I think there are a lot of things that we share in terms of what is important, and that's really good to see. Actually, I want to start by what you were just sharing about how things are happening in Europe. And I think here in the United States, for example, I'm right now in the middle of a meeting that is bringing together the National Academy of Engineering, the National Academy of Medicine, and the National Academy of Science. And obviously, AI is a big topic. But one of the things that I'm seeing from this meeting is that because, especially in the National Academy of Engineering, because there is a requirement that half of the members have to come from industry. So there has been a lot of discussions on application and on policy at the national level. And I feel like universities and education is starting to fall behind in the conversation. And so what's happening in the United States is that almost every institution is developing their own agenda and is developing their own philosophy and their own policy, right? And that is difficult because we are facing probably one of the most disruptive technology in a long time. And if we really need to implement this well in education, we need to make sure that we're talking to each other, not only at the national level, but also at the international level, right? So one of the things that is also happening is that in most of the conversations, we are missing the point. And in education, the tool is being assessed and evaluated in terms of policy and in terms of how can we avoid that our students cheat, right? And that's missing the point. That's missing the huge impact that these technologies can have. So back to Dr. Maria's question about what needs to happen. And well, I think one of the things in education that needs to happen is that professors, instructors, faculty members, and anyone involved in education need to understand that AI should enter the curriculum. That's a must. We cannot continue pretending that this is not a tool that everyone is using, right? It's like telling a student right now not to use Google. We know that's not going to happen, right? But it should enter the curriculum as an object of engineering judgment, right? And we need to be able to protect what we call the analytic spine, right? There have been a lot of arguments about depth of knowledge and about critical thinking and things like that, right? So usually some of these conversations come back again to the assessment. And one of the bigger conversations that we also need to be happening is about what we are assessing and how. And I think Diana's point about multiple choice tests, that's on point, right? It gets us to nowhere. And one of the things that I always ask faculty members is, if you are worried that your student will use AI to solve your assessment, then maybe you need to reconsider your assessment, right? So there are multiple things that you can do, again, to frame it as a very powerful tool that students will need to learn, that professors will need to learn, and we need to learn how to incorporate it in a way that becomes critical and again, promotes thinking, critical reflection, and especially promoted as a model, as modeling critic spaces. And again, it can be powerful, right? Because when we think about the things that are not happening in our education, especially when we train engineers, a lot of these things, so for example, I'm teaching right now a class on capstone design. And one of the biggest issues that we have is bring people from industry to criticize the students' projects. Well, I did all those models with AI. Now, every single team has a stakeholder that is artificial intelligence that will ask the teams really hard questions about their projects. And, I don't need to go around the world trying to find engineers that will come to my class at a time that, the only time that I'm available, but I have a vast of knowledge that is synthesizing in the way that I tell it to synthesize some very critical questions for my students so they can improve their design. And I'm transparent. I think that's the other part that we need to be doing a lot. We need to be transparent about how we use it and why, especially with our students. I think we need to reach the point where this is not the devil, but this is a powerful tool. But let me help you how to learn this. And let me help you learn the unintended consequences that this might bring, right? So another example that is big in the conversation, at least from my side of things right now, is academic research and publishing and those processes. A lot of journals have been developing stipulations about how AI would play a role in reviewing manuscripts or even in the production of manuscripts, right? But even when we go to the classroom, one of the things that many students are not aware is that if you are a PhD student or a master's student and you are developing a dissertation, that dissertation probably is a very novel, unique idea that you are developing yourself. So when you put that into the AI space, you pretty much are sharing your novel idea with the world, right? And you might not be able to demonstrate your novelty on time before someone else does, if you decide to put it out there, right? So I think students really need to understand that, because sometimes they say, oh, I just use it to check my manuscript and for grammar and things like that. I say, well, yeah, but the consequence of that is that you put it out there, right? And now it's part of the knowledge of that others can bring and can use. So if your idea is very novel, again, it's going to be out there. So I think that's where I feel like transparency plays a really, really critical role. And then the last one that I really want to comment is, and I think Diana also bring this up, ethics and academic integrity, right? And again, there is a fine line between what we should do and what we can do and what we really shouldn't be doing. And I think that's where, if we start framing things differently, I think we can reach a point where we will understand the root of the problem and not blame the tool as the problem. And I think that has to do a lot with how we are training our professors in the pedagogy of facing engineering classrooms. Right now, we are developing a workshop on the use of AI, the use of pedagogies of care for academic integrity in the AI era. And I think a lot of people has been very interested in this workshop because it guides us in a way that you can understand that developing these effective learning environments has a lot to do with connecting the students and engaging the students, right? And once you create that baseline, then the tool is not the problem. The tool becomes the support to help you critically think, critically analyze, critically solve, right? And then you implement that as part of your practices in a way that you couldn't before. So for example, in another class that I'm involved with helping, we have civil engineering students working with digital twins, and they go and create their model, and we tell them, now go to AI and create the same model and do a comparison, right? And then they are able to understand that, yes, it can do a great job, but it also has deficiencies, and they have different deficiencies. So when they bring those two things together, it becomes a really great model, right? But again, I think one of the important things and what I want to emphasize is, one, the importance of not neglecting it, but rather incorporating it as a tool. Second, we really need to rethink our assessments and evaluations, because we've been doing the same for probably 300 years. And third, I think, being transparent about the things that we do and why we do it. I think that's also really important. Let me start right there, because I know there might be some questions. Doctora, you're muted.
I found it very interesting to see how you're shifting the use from getting the answer from AI to having AI ask you the difficult questions, and comparing the models between an AI model and one that is developed by the students. I thought that was very interesting. And also seeing the difference in maturity of development of AI policies, procedures, and how Europe has gone ahead by the synthesis of many people coming together versus the US that hasn't, or the Americas that hasn't advanced in that area. And there's need to advance, and hope in the IEEE Education Society standards that this would help the engineering professors deal with this environment. Now I'll open it up for questions. I know Remy Then Luna from the Dominican Republic has worked on incorporating AI in tutoring and learning tools that he's developing.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation, Diana and Homero. On this moment, I don't have a question, but I think that the education have a lot of challenge and opportunities from the AI incorporation. You see, this moment is how it's started for this technology, and we are looking what we can do for implement this technology the best way in the education.
Okay. He's done something interesting to me, and he has done the questioning of students based on the Bloom's taxonomy to see what level or depth of learning they've attained. So it's again going with what Dr. Murzi said, that we need to change the way that we're doing assessment to more meaningful assessments and deeper knowledge. Anyone else interested in giving a talk? I'm looking at the chat to see if there's any questions. I know that Luis Fernando Martinez Arconada from France, UNIT, has been very vocal in LACCEI on making sure that we don't abandon. Oh, he just went out. Oh, he just opened up his camera. His viewpoint that he can explain, and your perspective on the East and West Hemisphere. He works very much with us in Latin America, and he lives and teaches in Europe, in France.
No, I don't have preparing the question for this webinar, but I listen,
Puedes
Diana
decirlo en español, yo lo traduzco.
and Homero. Ok, entonces no había
Yo lo
preparado.
comprendo.
Yes,
I will translate, Diana.
Ok, no había preparado preguntas, estaba más que nada como auditor. Pero bueno, escuchando a Diana y a Homero, creo que estamos en el mismo, en la misma onda. I think that is the same now. Pero mi pregunta es hacia los estudiantes.
His question is regarding the students.
Is regarding the students. ¿Qué habilidades intelectuales estamos procurando a los estudiantes incitándoles a utilizar la IA?
What competencies are we developing in the students, inviting them to use the artificial intelligence?
Y un poquito más, ¿cuál será la plaza del profesor si todo está en la IA?
And what is the role of the professor if everything is in AI?
Y un paso más adelante, ¿para qué formar a un ingeniero si la IA tiene la solución?
And why teach
I'm an engineer
an
if the AI
engineer
has the answer.
if the AI has the answer? So very good perspectives, questions that are being asked by professors. And we have a question now on the chat. Guillermo, do you want to say your question? You're on mute, or would you like me to say it?
Oh, it's okay. Thank you. My question is about the importance of AI and the dependence on electricity of internet. So if we don't have any access to the internet, we don't have electricity, the AI is over. So I think we must always keep teaching the students about critical thinking and decision making without this help.
Can I answer briefly, Maria and Homero?
Yes.
basically more or less the same thing. What is the role of the teacher? In my perspective, and something which I strongly advocated, not only now, because even back when the web came up and when the open online courses or when the Web 2.0 tools were up, we had this question. When the mobile phones came up and when very easily you could find answers on searches online and on Wikipedia and so on, we had these questions. What is the role of the professor then? If you go and they give you the answer, now it's a bit more easier, only at the surface, because we all know that AI is only relying on previous knowledge. It also creates, we know now that around 18% of the answers which AI gives are based on the data, which is what we call it artificial data. So data produced by AI in previous prompts or in previous answers. And that's why I always say, when you are using AI, give it feedback. Is it good or bad? Because if you don't give it feedback, that means that it considers it good, even if it's wrong or bad. And then reuses that information for somebody else, which might not have your level of expertise in that subject, and gives that as the right answer. So it's also our role on educating AI of giving the good answer. So I consider the teacher to be a facilitator and a mentor. I think something which we forgot quite a lot in the 90s and 80s also, we considered the professor, especially in higher education and also in engineering quite a lot, more as a transmitter of knowledge. As we are transferring our knowledge and our power and experience to the student. Now that power is shifting. We are not only the only ones which have the power of knowledge and information and transformation. And I think we need to focus more on mentoring and facilitating. So giving guidance to students on how to use it, creating for them disruptive situations. So I do a lot with my students, and I created so small guidance on how to do it. Like all the time asking your students to do something with their brain in quite a closed environment, and then do the same thing like the digital twins, which Homero has said. Where we are using it in different areas of engineering, or the same method. And then do the same with AI, and then compare it. Put it together and see how it works. And then you comment this openly with all the students, or with as much as possible from the students from that group of topic, education, degree, and level of education. And then you invite others from outside. I use also regional stakeholders, external from other EU countries or from industry, to come and comment with us together that. And to do that in small sprints. So not to have this more than, 3 weeks or 4 weeks on doing for a topic, and then we move to another topic and we work like that. So you don't anymore go and transfer knowledge to your students. So this is why I created, or I'm using a lot of openly created tools and courses online, either by myself in the past or in the present or by others, as the open education principle. So I give to my students, okay, you have the first weeks, go and learn this and give me the badges. Show me that you pass that knowledge and that you pass that information. So I ask them to go and learn that information and knowledge somewhere else. And I use my presence in my class to discuss with students more. It not always works. Why? To be honest, our students are lazy, if I want to be honest, and they lack sometimes motivation. And you have very good ones, which they do this asynchronous learning, and they flipped classroom model that they learn by themselves and then we discuss. And then you have the laggards, which are not really doing it, and you need to push them and to try to drag them to do this. And then they will quickly go to AI to give you the answers. And then I prove them that they're wrong. Or they are not very right. And then they start thinking and doing it. It's not easy. It requires a lot of effort and dedication from the professors. But I see in the future, as I said, the role of educators, especially in engineering fields or in technical fields, more like a facilitator of finding knowledge, developing their critical thinking and creative minds as much as possible, putting them in disruptive situations which are not comfortable to them. You don't know how much my students are complaining for me against me. I have luckily, I'm in a position where they can't do too much to me. I'm my senior here.
Thank
But
you,
my
Diane.
students constantly complain that I give them too much work and too many different things. Sorry, I'm taking too
Homero,
long.
the last word.
Yeah, I mean, I think two quick things. One, to emphasize that AI is a tool, and we are the ones in charge of teaching critical thinking. The tool won't. So I think that's the main difference between what the instructor do and what the tool does, right? And one of the things that I do is when I compare, I started doing research on teamwork 20 years ago. And I kept thinking how to explain to professors that putting students in teams is not teaching them teamwork. It doesn't happen magically. So to be able to have arguments on why it was important to train people and how to teach teamwork, I went and did a very long research project where I looked for 1,000 job posts where companies were saying, every single company, every single job post was saying they need teamwork. And that's a way to convince them. Well, I did the same in a recent study, but thank you to machine learning, I was able to analyze 3 million job posts in engineering around the world. And almost all of them require understanding of knowledge of use and implementations of AI. So I think that's something else that we need to consider. If we are forming engineers for the workforce, we need to understand what the workforce want. And part of that is understanding that this is a tool and it's the same. I mean, I know it's powerful, right? But it's the same as MATLAB, it's the same as when we introduce calculators. And so I think we just need to make sure as academics that we maintain our role relevant by not focusing on things that are meaningless, like grades or memorization. So I think that's our role.
Very good. Well, I thank you, Dr. Andone, Dr. Murzi, for this wonderful, insightful East-West perspective. And we have a lot of work to do, a lot to learn pedagogically. So I thank you for this very valuable webinar. And it's going to be also used in educating our engineering educators in our projects. Thank you very much, and I bid you farewell until the next webinar. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Diana. I know it's late.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure. You know, I always like to speak about that.
It was great. It was great.